LUAN Emotional Podcast, conversations for inspiration on the go. We offer on-the-go inspiration because our whole heart is set on beauty and our best bets are set on art.
Hi everyone, welcome to LUAN Emotional Podcast. So on our last episode, we dig a little bit deeper on intimacy and what kills intimacy in relationships and the polarity between masculine and feminine energy based on the work of David Data. And it was quite important to kind of just go through several concepts that I think that are quite important for nowadays. And when I was 6 years old, I remember I went to my dad's house and I saw this book that was called The Missing Piece Meets the Big O by Shel Silverstein. And at that moment, I didn't know absolutely anything about Shel Silverstein. And I remember that I kind of opened the book, I saw a few images, and maybe I was young enough that I didn't kind of connect that much with it. But then I found out that book again when I was 10 years old. And at 10, it did make a huge impact in my life because the book actually gave me a better narrative for me about what relationships are, instead of the typical knowledge that we might hear constantly about kind of finding your other half, as if you would be incomplete just being who you are. No, it's kind of like if you came to this world incomplete and you need another partner to kind of be complete. It's so I can't believe we were raised with that dialogue. It's completely hurtful. It's nothing, there's nothing wise on it. And I remember having different conversations when I was young with friends that they were, for example, if they were creatives, then they were looking for someone that was in finance, because then, you would complement each other. And then maybe something, I don't know what was it, but it could actually work. And then other friends that were, I don't know, a different profession were looking for the opposite profession. Kind of like if you would put both personalities in a blender and make one, then eventually the relationship would work. And I love Shel Silverstein's work because it talks about topics that are really complicated for adults, explained in a really easy and digestible way for kids with drawings and a few words. And this book was one of them. So the book is The Missing Piece Meets the Big O by Shel Silverstein. And it is this piece, kind of imagine a triangle, that has an eye, kind of like this triangle piece with an eye, that's looking for its other missing piece, kind of imagine this Pac-Man shape that's a circle with a missing triangle, let's say it that way. So eventually the idea or the desire is for these two pieces to blend together so they can start rolling, not together. So it's kind of like if you need another person to be able to roll. And the missing piece starts, looking around and finds, a piece that has too many missing pieces. Then she finds another piece that has exactly that shape that she has, that missing piece is missing. So then they connect. They form this round ball and they start rolling together. But eventually one of them started to grow, so they couldn't roll together harmoniously. They have kind of this bumpy ride, so they got separated, And then she found other pieces, but maybe she was too big for the other piece, or maybe too small for the other piece. And it wasn't exactly the right shape and size for what the missing piece was looking for. So then the missing piece was kind of desperate, looking for, what else can I do to find my missing piece, So she started kind of dwelling a lot into beauty and focusing on how to be more attractive. And of course, it attracted new pieces, but the pieces didn't eventually stay for long. And then she dwelled a little bit on knowledge and on learning, on growing, kind of like her education and her work experience. And eventually some pieces came, but others were completely kind of like struck by lightning, no? In a sense that they were a bit intimidated by all the things that she knew. So the missing piece is completely desperate, not knowing what to do, where to go, feeling completely helpless. And then eventually she finds a round ball. And in this round ball, she looks at the round ball and she's like, hey, how come you can roll alone by yourself? Did you do that? And the round ball tells the missing piece. He tells her like, no, you can do that too. And the missing piece is like, no, but I have square edges. I cannot roll. And the ball told her, no, you can start running, and little by little, no? The piece started doing the flop, 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 kind of like running. And the square edges started to become round edges. And she kept on running and running and running until she became a round ball. And the moral of the story is that eventually they both of them, autonomously, independently, they were running separate balls, no, autonomous balls. They were running in the same direction. And that allows for more evolution in the relationship, because you cannot expect that you and your partner are going to grow or to evolve exactly at the same time and exactly in the same circumstances. Of course, I don't think that's how things happen. Things are kind of like we're more complicated and we're independent beings. So as being independent beings, we all have different timings for things. So you cannot kind of ask everybody to do exactly the same things, no? So then if one of the partners starts to grow more than the other one, then, one speeds up the speed and the other one slows down the speed. But it's a matter of each of them growing their own essence, their own identity independently, and then showing and, wanted to share it with someone else that you're running in the same direction. So I love this analogy. It's something that after you read the book, it's super simple, but I think it has a lot of knowledge of how in our culture we're being taught that relationships are and the things that we're told that we need to look for. And I think it's totally the opposite. We need to nurture our essence, our identity. We need to become complete beings. We spoke in the last episode about the one-dimensional relationship, which is that your needs are only the ones that you have for yourself, no? The second-dimensional relationship that is about equality, about addressing both your needs and your partner needs. And the third one, which I think is the most interesting one, is a three-dimensional relationship, which is when your partner's needs are your needs, and when your needs are your partner's needs. And I think that changes completely the game. That kind of like transforms everything else, because you start working as a team. You start to kind of like, use a family as a team to address everybody's needs. And at some point, I know that you're going to have contradictions, because there could be some needs that could contradict with another member of the family's needs, right? But I think it's a more healthy way to see relationships and families as this kind of like team working together towards, addressing everybody's needs. So then everybody feels taken care of, everybody feels seen, everybody feels or has a feeling heard, seen, understood, cared for, right? And at the same time, with the duality of freedom and appreciation. And I love how Shel could put this wisdom in an easy-to-read book, with this childlike drawing. It's really easy for us to understand. So my encouragement, I think, would be for us to start exploring about what is it about, for us being complete beings, autonomous beings, which is the direction that we want to run in life, and find someone that wants to run in the same direction with us. My grandparents were married for almost 75 years. At the beginning, it wasn't kind of like that easy marriage. But as they started growing old, they created an amazing relationship. So they had the best time together, honestly. So they were just a happy couple, It was that laugh together, do many things together, travel together, do adventures together. They really cared for each other, so they were a great couple. And I remember one time I asked my grandma, what's the secret to your relationship? And I remember she told me, one of the most important things with my relationship with Paye, her name was Pupe. Well, her nickname was Pupe, and my grandpa's nickname was Paye, so Pupe Paye. One of the things that I like most about Paye is that he enjoys doing the same things that I do. So my secret for relationships or for finding him was that I was doing what I loved the most. And while doing what I love most, I met him while he was doing what he loves most. So then eventually she told me, like, so the relationship sometimes can change to a more friendship relationship, and then the passionate kind of like loving essence could come back again. And that allowed for that flexibility, for that kind of like novelty, for that strong intimacy, for a strong relationship between them. Because they were both enjoying what they were doing, and they were both trying out what the other person liked. No? If my grandpa loved tennis, then my grandma was playing tennis. And I think it's something really wise that I wanted to share with you in this episode. So I encourage you to do what you love most constantly. And in LUAN, that's something that we focus a lot on create your life, create your essence, be kind of like the creator and the artist of your voice, of your own identity.